Is Kansas City still affordable? Look, if you're thinking about making a move to Kansas City, that's clearly a question on your mind. Is Kansas City as affordable as everyone says it is? Well, that's the question we're going to answer in this video. And you're going to want to stick around to the end because we're going to talk about housing. And really, this is where supposedly Kansas City really shines. So that all being said, the first thing we want to talk about is transportation, because that affects just about everybody here. Now here's the good news. Kansas City is one of the most affordable major metros when it comes to getting around town. In fact, the overall transportation cost is somewhere between 10 to 15% below the national average. In fact, the average commute time is about 23 minutes as opposed to the national average of about 30 minutes. And when you compare our commute time to places like Dallas and Denver and Chicago and LA, they're even much shorter than theirs when you compare the both. So the reason for that is Kansas City is blessed with a terrific infrastructure system. We have 4 major interstates that serves Kansas City: Interstate 29, 35, 49, and Interstate 70. And then we have what I call the ancillary interstate systems. For instance, we have Interstate 470, 635, and 670, and we also have the Belt Loop, which is Interstate 435. This makes getting around Kansas City very easy, very quick, which means to you, you're spending less time in the car, which means you're spending less money at the pump. And speaking of gas, the national average per gallon of gasoline in the United States right now, as of October 2025, is approximately $3.10 a gallon. Comparatively, Kansas City is at $2.70, Dallas is at $2.60, Denver's at $3.10, Chicago's at $3.60, and LA, a distant fourth, at $4.70. So clearly, Dallas and Kansas City are the most affordable, but where Kansas City has the edge over Dallas, again, it goes back to infrastructure. We just have a better infrastructure than Dallas has, so you're going to spend, again, less time in your car, which means you're going to spend less time and less money at the pump. Now, Chicago and Denver, they're similar in terms of where they land in the per gallon, but once again, their infrastructure system is not quite as robust as Kansas City's. And as far as Los Angeles is concerned, well, regardless of what their infrastructure looks like, they just don't have the ability to handle all the traffic. And they're subject to gridlock, which is not something that we face here in Kansas City. Yes, at rush hour, the traffic's going to slow down, but it continues to move. So if you are moving, though, to the Kansas City metro area, you're going to need a car. We don't have much of a way of a public transportation system unless you live in the urban core. Because once you get into the suburbs, you're definitely going to need a car to commute to work, to run your errands, and to take and pick up your kids for school. Hey, by the way, if we haven't met, my name is Chris Pucci, and I help people just like you make a seamless move into the Kansas City metropolitan area. And I post videos just like this that share everything about Kansas City. So if you want to learn more about the KC metro area, subscribe to my channel. Just tap on the bell below. Also, if you are making a move to the Kansas City metro, I would love to be able to help you make that seamless move to the KC metro. So we've talked about transportation. So now let's turn our attention to food and groceries. So when it comes to groceries and dining out, Kansas City is refreshingly affordable. It's kind of funny. My daughter lives in LA, and she came home for a week to visit her parents. And she was amazed at how affordable groceries were here. In fact, we took her to the farmer's market, and she was amazed that we could buy organic blueberries or raspberries or blackberries for $2 when she was paying $8 for the same size, but they were non-organic. In fact, here's the thing about Kansas City. Groceries cost about 5 to 8% less than the national average. In fact, a week's worth of groceries for a family of 4 in Kansas City is going to run between $180 to $200 compared to $200 to $240 for the national average. Therefore, another way to look at it is you're saving approximately $40 a week times 52 weeks. So you're really saving almost $2,100 a year on grocery living here in Kansas City, which means your food bill is going to stretch a lot further here than most of the other major metropolitan areas. Now, that even translates over into the restaurant industry because dining out here in Kansas City is really affordable. For instance, you can get for lunch a nice sandwich for anywhere for about $14 to $15. And if you're going out on the town for dinner, for a dinner for 2, it's going to cost you and your date about $60 to $70. There's other ways that you can save because restaurants, I'm sure where you live, they all have different specials. So if you want to get a great burger, you go to Red Door on Monday. For $7, you get the regular size burger with all the trimmings. Tuesday, we have great Mexican restaurants here. A lot of them have Taco Tuesday, but if you don't want Mexican, you can check out Lou's Bar and Grill, where you can get a great fried chicken dinner entree for just $13.99. And then Wallabies, which is one of my favorite bar and grills. They have specials throughout the entire week. So if I don't hit Taco Tuesday, I can hit them for Taco Thursday and get their tacos for $2 a taco, and they're not small. They're a good sized taco. And as far as barbecue, well, let's be honest. Barbecue here in Kansas City is like a food group. We have iconic restaurants like Arthur Bryant's on Brooklyn. You've got Joe's of Kansas City and the gas station at 47th and Mission Road, Jack Stack Barbecue and the Freight Yard. These are 3 of just a number of Kansas City's more iconic barbecue restaurants. You can get a barbecue beef sandwich from Joe's for $10.70 or their famous Z-Man for $12.79. Hey, so here's the bottom line. Regardless of where you go, you can eat out very cheaply here in the Kansas City area. Once again, your dining dollar and your grocery dollar will go a lot further here than in most of the other major metropolitan areas. Now we've talked about groceries and food, and we've talked about transportation. So what we want to do now is we're going to talk about healthcare. Healthcare costs here in Kansas City are right around the national average or slightly below. In fact, take for instance, a visit to the primary doctor is about $120. And if you're going to the dentist, say for a cleaning, you're looking at about $100 for that visit as well. And as far as pharmaceutical prices or prescriptions go, they're going to be comparable to or a little less than the national average or other large major metropolitan areas. Now, the metro is also fortunate to be supported by some outstanding hospital systems such as St. Luke's, Menorah, Children's Mercy, and KU Med Center. All 4 of these systems are top-tier hospitals that offer outstanding care without the inflated big city costs. Here's a simple side-by-side comparison between Kansas City, Chicago, Denver, LA, and Dallas. So starting with 100 as the baseline for coverage here in the United States, Kansas City is slightly below the cost at 95 to 98%. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth comes in at second. It's a slightly over at 102 to 105, but it's less than Denver. Denver's comes in at 105 to 108, so it's still, again, slightly above the average. Chicago is about average at 108 to 112, and once again, trailing the pack, you've got Los Angeles at 115 to 125. So here's the bottom line. Kansas City is the most affordable of these 4 metropolitan areas that we're comparing it to, which means you're going to be able to stretch your family dollar even further. Next up, we're going to talk about utilities and the internet. Take, for instance, a 2,000 square foot house. Here you can expect a utility bill of approximately $230 a month, and that's going to include electricity, gas, water, and trash. Now, it's going to vary quite a bit throughout the year because we do have 4 distinct seasons. So when we're at those peak months in the summer, like late July and through August, you're going to see some of your highest bills. Conversely, when you're in winter and you're in January and February, that's when you're going to be running your furnace all the time, and you're going to be running it to keep your house toasty, whatever temperature you set it at, and that's where you're going to also see your peak bills. But the rest of the time, it's going to be a lot less than that. In fact, during certain periods during springtime as well as the fall, you don't even need to run the furnace or the air conditioning. In fact, we're in October right now, and we're about 1 week away from transitioning into November. The temperatures have been in the 70s and the 60s. We have not run either the air conditioner or the furnace. Same with a period or two in the springtime. So literally right now, I'm averaging about $30 a week. So I'm going to end up with a utility bill of about $120, significantly less than the $230 I might expect to pay in the peak months in the winter and the summer. So when it comes to internet services, there's a couple different ways that you can approach that. If you go through the cable companies where you've kind of bundled it with your streaming and other services, you can typically get that for $40 a month. However, if you're not going that route and you're trying to take advantage of AT&T Fiber or Google Fiber, then you're probably looking at somewhere between $70 to $90 a month. And this is pretty close to what you'll find in other metropolitan areas. Kansas City in some cases is going to be a little higher. In other cases, it's going to be a little more affordable. So once again, how you heat your house and cool your house during the summer is going to have the biggest impact, but there are periods throughout the year where you don't have to work either the furnace or the air conditioning. And as far as internet services, it depends on what you want to use it for. If you're a gamer, you want the high speed. If you're working at home, you probably want the high speed as well. But if neither one of those are something that you do, then you probably can get by with the $40 a month internet service. So that being said, we're going on to our next one, which happens to be entertainment and lifestyle. Entertainment is another area where Kansas City truly does shine. We have sports teams, art studios and galleries. We have festivals, concerts, all of which are less expensive when you compare it to other comparable metros. For instance, movie tickets. Movie tickets here are about $13. Gym memberships, $40 to $50 per month. And a night out on the town for 2 with dinner, drinks, and a movie, you can do it for under $100. Now, take for instance the Nelson Atkins Museum. This is a national as well as internationally recognized art museum. It's free. Hey, First Fridays and the Crossroads, that's awesome. There, all the art studios and galleries, they're open to the public for free. There's plenty of food trucks so you can eat on the cheap. And there's always other activities that are taking place, which makes this such a crazy 1 day a month giant street party. We have the sports teams. If you're into soccer, our men's professional soccer team and our women's professional soccer teams, their tickets are on the low end compared to their competitors. Same with the Kansas City Royals, our professional Major League Baseball team. They tend to be on the lower side, which really makes their sport more family friendly and accessible. Now, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs, well, yeah, they're kind of on the higher end now, but that's what happens when you win you go to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls and you win 3 of those, plus you get a chance to see Taylor Swift. And as far as family venues go, you've got the park system, the zoo, the Deanna Rose Farmstead, just to name a few of the many venues that are family oriented, that are basically free, which allows you to stretch your family entertainment budget without breaking the bank. So next up on our list, we're going to talk a little bit about the job market as well as income. So now let's talk briefly about income and the job market. And let's start with income. So Kansas City's median household income is approximately $83,000. This is about $7,000 higher than the national median average, which is $75,000. But let's talk more specifically. Let's talk how it looks compared to Dallas, Chicago, LA, and Denver. So take Dallas for the moment. Their median household income is $86,860. Denver comes in at $92,504, almost $10,000 more than Kansas City's. Los Angeles, $87,800, and Chicago comes in last at $80,613. But you need to keep this in mind. Kansas City compares very favorably with Dallas and LA and Chicago because unlike those three cities, they have a much higher cost of living than the Kansas City metro has. So you can actually do a lot more with less income in Kansas City than you can in these other three markets. Now, let's talk a little bit about the job market. The industries that actually drive the KC Metro include tech, finance, healthcare, as well as logistics. The major employers here include Cerner, Black & Veatch, Garmin, as well as Hallmark. All of these companies, this is where their national headquarters is. And in addition to those job opportunities, we're just now opening up the Panasonic EV manufacturing facility. When it's all set and operational, it's going to offer 4,000 jobs. This facility spans 300 acres, and when it's fully completed and built out, will contain 4.7 million square feet. This is a $4 billion investment, the largest private investment in Kansas City's history. And look, if you happen to be a professional who can work remotely and you receive those big salaries that you get from the bigger markets and you move to Kansas City, you got the best of the both worlds. Big salary, low cost of living. What more could you ask for? So that being said, we're going to tackle our last and final category. Oh, and by the way, if you have any questions or observations, please feel free to leave those questions and observations in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to address your questions. And now the big one, housing. This is where Kansas City truly separates itself. Now, the median home price in Kansas City is approximately $310,000. This is about 35% lower than the national average, which exceeds $480,000. But to give this a little more perspective, let's just take, for example, a 2,000 square foot house in Kansas City, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, and LA, and see how they compare in terms of price and the potential savings you would incur with a house payment. Kansas City, for a 2,000 square foot home, has a median home price of $340,000, Chicago $542,000, Denver $700,000, and Los Angeles $1.4 million. At an interest rate of 6.25%, the principal and interest for Kansas City would be $2,093, Dallas $2,869, Chicago $3,337, Denver $4,310, and Los Angeles $6,157. Now, what's the monthly difference? Well, in Dallas, you're going to spend $776 more a month, or $9,312 more annually. Chicago, you're going to spend $1,244 a month more for the same size house, and you're going to end up paying over the 12 months $14,928 more in house payment. Denver, $2,217 more a month, or $26,600 more a year. In Los Angeles, a whopping $4,064 a month, or $48,768 annually. And add to the fact that the taxes in the Kansas City Metro are 1.3 to 1.4% depending on the county. Also, here in Kansas City, you're going to often get newer construction, bigger lots, and shorter commute times, which really is just the icing on the cake. So, if you are considering making a move to the Kansas City area, I would love to help you find that perfect neighborhood. So, if you want to set up a time to chat, you can contact me by phone, email, voicemail, or better yet, schedule a Zoom call. Oh, and if you would do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the channel. And a couple of last bookkeeping items. One, if you're like most of us, you're going to need financing to purchase your next home. Well, in addition to being a realtor, I'm also a lender, so I can help you navigate that process, answer any questions you have. My clients, they like the fact that I can address both sides of the transactions. It makes the whole process simpler, better communication, and less stressful. Also, if you are making a transition from your current residence to another market that's not Kansas City, and you need to be introduced to a good agent who truly understands their market, give me a shout. I can put you in touch with an agent in that market as well. So with all that being said, I want to thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you found it informative. And until then, I do look forward to showing you around the Kansas City market.